So lovely to see folks logging on and saying hello and welcome. I'm deeply grateful to be sharing space with you today, for me this morning, for Giles tonight. So let's begin with a sit. I invite you to get comfortable in whatever way works best for you. Perhaps beginning by, as you settle in, just noticing where in the body might be calling for attention. So before we move into stillness, looking to see if your spine would like a little twist or your arms a stretch. Take a moment to listen, to honor the body. All right. Begin the meditation by allowing the attention to rest. For this particular meditation, I'd like to invite you to release any strict focus on a particular object, just for this meditation. Before we move into that, I invite you to follow along with some simple prompts. I am aware of my left foot, for example. Just attending to the left foot. I'm aware of the sensation in my belly. I am aware of the beating of my heart. I am aware of the passing of thoughts, the arising, the forming, the existence, and the passing of thoughts. I'm aware of all of that. such importance in knowing how to direct our own attention. One of the themes for our call today. Notice that with ease we can direct our attention, place it wherever we wish. Now, though, for this meditation, release the ends of those sentences. In other words, rather than I am aware of my right knee or I am aware of a particular emotion. If you saw that sentence visually, imagine the end of the sentence dropping off. Rest in, I am aware. You might imagine if the attention was a flashlight, rather than moving outward with a small beam being directed from object to object, you might imagine that beam softening and widening and opening. As this light draws back into its own source. Awareness. Wide, vast, open, infinite awareness. The awareness with full capacity for any object, yet no need for any object. Full room. The awareness, the vast awareness that has full room for anything and everything to arise. Yet no need for any of it. Awareness that knows itself as itself. If the mind is busy, that's not a problem. Awareness, or for this call, I'll use interchangeably infinite consciousness. Infinite consciousness, awareness, is undisturbed by the movements of the mind. Simply allow the mind to do what it does. In doing so, you're doing so from the recognition of yourself as awareness. Nothing to fix. Nothing to change. Nothing to manage, manipulate, or control. Most importantly, no one to do the controlling. No director of that play, of that drama. Is there a limit to this awareness? Can you find the edge? Is there a boundary? See if rather than answering this question in the mind, see if you can use it as an invitation to explore in your own direct experience. As I rest here, now, do I find an edge to awareness? Do I find a boundary? Do I have an experience of anything that arises outside it? Notice the sounds around you in this moment, for example. Are they not arising in awareness? And how are these sounds known? How are these sounds experienced? If the mind is still busy, allow it to simply rest in this. And if there's any resistance to that, allow the resistance to rest in this. It already is. It can't be anywhere else. Relaxation is the byproduct of recognizing that when we rest as ourselves in this way, there's no work to be done. Thank you. Before we dive into today's theme, I would like to pause. Worldwide Insight does need our support, and I would like to just pause to remind folks that sometime during this call, if you could please support the platform, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So I absolutely love this theme of consciously setting intention, and I have for some years now. I confess I at times wonder if I'll grow tired of it. I wonder sometimes around the end of the year, if when January rolls around, or as we head towards the beginning of the year, I wonder if I won't be as engaged in the material of what it means to set conscious intentions. And I have yet to have that experience that I don't feel engaged by it. I have had the experience that over the years, my relationship to what it means to set conscious intentions has shifted a lot. And I would say that over the years, the shift has been one of recognizing more and more completely and fully that it's possible to set intentions from the space that we were just resting in, and that intention is quite different than the kind of resolution that we're conditioned to be drawn to set. The resolution that often is supporting the notion that there's a self that needs to be fixed or improved. So in preparation for this call, I wrote a little something that I would love to read to you so that I can pause during it and ad lib. I very much, another thing that I'd like to underline that Giles pointed to is this invitation to join the call. I want to underline that that is my favorite aspect of this platform, that I have the opportunity to engage with folks that I haven't had the chance to meet in person, and that way of interacting allows us to experience our inherent connection. Some of you may already be feeling that just by glancing at the sidebar. It's such a delight to have folks from all over the world here together in this way. So thank you to each of you for showing up, for caring about practice, and ultimately about the cessation of suffering and about peace in this world. So I shall begin. Is it possible to create New Year's intentions from the recognition of our wholeness rather than an attempt to improve or fix ourselves? I think that's a pretty rhetorical question at this point, but it does feel like an important one to me, because when we're just moving along through life from our conditioned habit, from the habits of the conditioned mind, it's quite easy to fall for the story that there's something that needs to be fixed. There's something wrong. The conditioned mind's flag might be, there's something wrong, there's not enough. So from that experience, that felt experience of there's something wrong or there's not enough, or the most common energetic block I see is whatever I do isn't enough. So that feeling of always being on the precipice of I need to do more. When we are moving through the world from that, for some of us, default setting, for most of us, the conditioned mind's default setting of that perspective, it doesn't occur to us that there might be another way. When our attention is identified with the conditioned mind, we forget who we authentically are. We forget that experience of resting as ourselves that was being pointed to and hopefully glimpsed or experienced in that meditation. Our true nature, which could also be described as awareness, named as awareness, is like an empty, open, and allowing space. So as this awareness, we resist nothing, hold on to nothing, seek nothing. Thus, contentment or happiness is our true default setting. It's what's most primary. It's our essential nature. Perhaps you relate to the question, though, that it doesn't always feel like that, does it? I imagine if you're joining this call, it's because you have a direct experience of, well, on some level I might know that, but it doesn't always feel like that. When we align our attention with the conditioned mind, we identify with the illusion of a self that is separate from life. And from this distortion, we leave our direct experience of who we authentically are, and we seek happiness in objects. We look for happiness in objects, and we do this sometimes even in the name of moving towards our true nature. But how can we move closer to ourselves? It's a faulty premise. Especially at this time of the year, we are conditioned to fall for the story that through the right resolution or through the right discipline, we'll finally become the right person, the person we should be, the person we long to be. And my favorite aspect of this is recognizing through my own practice and seeing in others how we'll even use spiritual language to do it. This year, I'll be more mindful. This year, I'll meditate more. All with this implication that that will solve the problem. When running this story, we believe that this resolution will bring us closer to an idealized vision of ourselves. And what's most important to underline about that is that this idealized vision is a conditioned vision. It bypasses the truth of who we actually are. It bypasses what we are. It bypasses what's essential, foundational. When our attention is aligned with the conditioned mind, energy follows that. So wherever we direct our attention, energy will follow. So for example, if I'm constantly attending to the story that I'm overweight, I might engage in self-harming behaviors that follow that underlying assumption and belief. So if I focus the attention on the remembrance of who I authentically am, it would make sense that actions that are in alignment with that recognition will follow. Behaviors that are in alignment with that recognition will follow. When we're recognizing and resting in our experience, our direct experience of who we authentically are, causing harm, in my experience, is not something that's at our fingertips. Not in the same way as when we are identified with the conditioned mind. But that experience isn't due to us having a resolution that suggests we would be better people if we stopped causing so much harm. So in the discussion, please let me know whether that distinction resonates with you, whether that means something to you. It's an important one. It is from this place, from this recognition of what's essential and primary, that we can create conscious intentions. And these intentions have a very, very different flavor than traditional New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions are a self-improvement plan. True practice can never be and will never be a self-improvement plan, because there is no self to improve. The separate self that asserts it wants to improve is a creation. I know it doesn't feel like that when we're in it, does it? It feels like the doorway out is to better ourselves. But hopefully in this conversation, we'll be able to unpack the way in which that assumption keeps this illusion in place. All of this is not the same thing as saying we have no part to play in creating change. What shifts is in how we experience that which is creating the change. So we're conditioned to believe that it is the illusion of a separate self, that it is our separate self that creates the change. What shifts as we practice resting in this perspective, what shifts is how we experience that which creates change, that which is change. When we're trying to make changes on behalf of a self that is perceived to be separate from life, the natural result is dissatisfaction. The byproduct of that experience is dissatisfaction. When we move on behalf of the recognition of our true nature, a conscious intention becomes a way to align all aspects of our lives with our deepest understanding and recognition of truth. From a conditioned New Year's resolution plan perspective, goals are born of and based in fear. They're seeped in a premise that I'm not enough. So I'm afraid of my own conditioned perspective of lack. So I need to do something. It's born of that fear that I need to do something to compensate for that lack. They're seeped in the premise that I'm not enough as I am. They're seeped in the notion, the conditioned belief that there's something wrong with me, that I need to fix myself, and that I resolve to do it. Can you feel the quality of the I in this conversation? Please, for a moment, just go to your own experience of that I need to fix myself. There's something wrong with me. I need to do something in order to compensate for it. I'm not enough, but I can change. Through mindfulness, I can control my anger issues. There's a hardness, there's an edge, there's a sharpness in my experience. A pushing, a doing, a striving. Look to see for a moment, pause. How would you describe that energy to yourself, for yourself? And just notice how all of that pushing and striving reinforces the illusion that I am this separate, solid, fixed, isolated thing. A conscious intention is seeped in possibility. So rather than being seeped in fear, as a resolution, a conditioned resolution is, a conscious intention is seeped in possibility. While it may even look similar on some level, on the surface, to a conditioned goal, it's born of different soil. It's not born of fear, it's born of possibility. It's not what, it's how. So it's not the content. You might have a conscious intention to have more meditation in your life in 2018. We can talk about that. But that intention, if it's born of the recognition of who you authentically are, if it's born of the heart, in a sense, it will have a very different flavor. It's born of different soil than being born of fear and being born of that which reinforces this illusion of a separate self. Conscious intention is a reflection of the infinite possibility exhibited in all of life. It's grounded in the recognition of our wholeness, and it's enlivened by love. A Christian mystic might say, it's created by God in the recognition and remembrance of God, for God. Thank you. I would love to look now. I'm just going to head over to the question bar, ask a question. Oh, let's see, I don't have a question. Giles, I wonder if you might type in the sidebar. I'm not getting that scroll down place on my screen that shows me where I can see people's question. Let's see. We're quiet. Perhaps there are no questions at the moment. Or perhaps someone could type a question just to make sure that I can access that. Okay, unanswered question 1. Okay, perfect, Sharon. I see Sharon Willoughby says there aren't any questions yet. Great. No problem. Yeah, great. Yes, Ariel, thank you for your question. Can you go into the difference between conscious intention and the conditioned mind? Absolutely. Thank you for your question. And just a reminder, if anyone would like to come on screen with me, that is ideal for me, because then I get to bounce things off of you and hear your experience in a more interactive way. And thank you for typing it in. This is completely fine too. When I talk about the conditioned mind, I am talking about the mind of limitation. In the meditation that I guided, you might notice that I kept referring to infinite awareness or infinite consciousness. The conditioned mind is the mind of limitation. It's the mind of something wrong. It's the mind of not enough. the activity, the separate self is not actually a solid thing. The separate self is actually an activity of the mind. And the mind that I'm referring to when I talk about that is the conditioned mind. It's just a title, just language for pointing at the difference between that open, infinite awareness, or our true nature, and the mind that is full of conditions. So, in light of today's theme, these New Year's resolutions that I'm referring to, they're born of our conditioning. It's another way that I'll sometimes refer to the conditioned mind, to point to our conditioning. So from a Buddhist perspective, this conditioning has perhaps been accumulating over lifetimes. Even from a Western psychological perspective, we could speak about this just from the perspective of the conditioning that we've been accumulating since we were born. I'm conditioned to be a people pleaser. I'm conditioned to turn to others for information about whether I'm doing a good job. I'm conditioned to leave my own experience in order to gauge externally. So that's just an example of conditioning. Or I'm conditioning to want to get things right. I'm conditioned to have the sense that if I can just get things perfect enough, then I'll finally be the right person. And of course, for most of us, this conditioning suggests that we aren't okay as we are, and that it is through our conditioned effort that we will become the person that we should be. So New Year's resolutions feed perfectly that narrative. In this conversation, we're exploring, what does it mean to release the narrative? A conscious intention is one expression of the recognition of who we authentically are that can assist in guiding us, can assist in helping us to remember that larger experience of self, remembering our true nature. Thank you for prompting me to flush out a little bit more about what the conditioned mind is. Thank you, Ariel. Okay. Let's see. Thank you for your questions. I'm not sure on my screen which one came in first, so I'll just start at the top here. Can you provide some examples of alternative New Year's resolutions that aren't self-improvement-y? Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Yes. So one thing that's really important to underline is that conscious intentions might seem similar on the surface. For example, last year, in 2017, I was I was playing the part of being executive director of our organization. So at the time, it was referred to as One House of Peace and Peace in Schools. So Peace in Schools is the work we do with teens and adults through mindfulness education. And then One House of Peace is the platform that I would be doing a call like this through. We're actually changing that name in 2018, but I'll get to that. It's a fun announcement. I was able to see in 2017 that because such a tremendous amount of my attention went to being in service to the organization through playing this role of executive director, that less of my attention was available for my greatest love, which is teaching and sharing practice in a forum just like this, in a way that allows me to be interactive with others who desire to be awake and free as well. it might sound like a New Year's resolution to say that in 2018, I have the intention to put more energy into teaching, into sharing practice in this way, not just also attending to what color tablecloths will be at our Peace in Schools Gala, or I actually didn't attend to that detail, but as a crude example, right? Paying close attention to the budget of Peace in Schools, or contracts with the district, for example. It could sound like a New Year's resolution to say, I am going to give more attention to the experience of sharing practice as I am today, and creating new opportunities and listening to life as new opportunities arise on that realm. But it's born of a very different place. I'm not confused that there's anything wrong with how things went in 2017. I don't need to redirect my attention because I'm not enough without more ways to share practice. All of it stems from love. All of it stems from being able to recognize where our conditioning, the activity of the conditioned mind, might be veiling our deepest heart's desire. So a conscious intention assists us in clarifying, honing in on what our deepest heart's desire is, rather than continuing to have energy feed arenas of our life that take us away. Now, we can't actually be taken away from our true nature, but we have a perceived experience of being taken away from our deepest heart's desire. So hopefully that clarifies. Thank you for asking that question. It's not what, it's how. That's the most important thing to say about that, I think. It's not what, it's how. It's not the content, it's the process. Julie, I find it really easy to remember that place of being enough when I'm at ease. For example, right now, I'm back from a retreat. However, when things start to run faster and I'm back in my usual work environment, I seem to forget this feeling and I'm back in the conditioned mind. Do you have any suggestions that might help with that? Thank you, Julie. Indeed. One of the things we do every year, our new, I'll just announce it now. I'm so excited about it. So One House of Peace is officially changing. We're changing our organizational name to Presence Collective. And I'd love, if you're interested in the kinds of conversation we're having today, please check out caverlymorgan.org. There's a new tab as of yesterday on the website called Presence Collective. And after the call, I'd love to have you read a little bit about what we're doing in the world and how we're moving through the world. And I invite you to be part of it. So as Presence Collective offers retreats and workshops, and I do private consultations through Presence Collective, moves through the world, one of the things we do consistently is an annual New Year's retreat. It's one of my favorite retreats of the year. So it sounds, Julie, like you just had a good retreat as well. We just had a really deep and profound retreat. And one of the things that we do on this retreat is we pause to create lesson reminders. It's something we do as a community every year. And these lesson reminders, the encouragement is for the lesson reminders to be short, for them to be easy to remember, and easy to post somewhere as a reminder. So one thing you might do is come up with just a handful of phrases that assist you in remembering. Now, this is just, I can address this question on a more esoteric plane as well, but right now I just want to address the relative, because I have the sense that that's a place that would support you. So there you are in your home, and you go into your kitchen and you see a Post-it note that has one of your lesson reminders. So a simple one, I'm going to look at your question again, Julie. I think you said yes, running faster at work. A simple one would be, remember to pause. It's just right there. Maybe it's on somewhere you'd see regularly in your kitchen or in your bathroom or at work. Remember to pause. So at the monastery where I trained, there was a little sign above the phone in the office that said, and this is above the phone. So the phone would ring and you notice this little sign. It said, before speaking, consider whether it's an improvement upon silence. So it's just this little lesson reminder that stopped you in your tracks and asked you to remember, Julie, the very thing that you're longing to remember. So that's just one simple thing you can do to support the remembrance of your recognition. The other thing, now this gets just less physical plane-ish. It's a technical term, physical plane-ish. So the other thing that can be supportive is to recognize that we will forget our experience. I'm such a fan of retreats. One of the things, as I focus more fully on teaching in 2018, one of the things I'm very excited to do is offer more retreats so that folks from all around the world can gather and practice together. It's my experience that retreats are a wonderful immersion into an experience of practice that can boost the strength of our experience of that recognition. So one way I like to talk about this is at the beginning of practice, that recognition can feel somewhat flimsy. That recognition of who we are can feel flimsy. It can be knocked off by anything. We could be in a situation where a busy day at work can throw us in our minds. Again, we're actually never being thrown from our true nature. It's not possible on that absolute realm. But on the relative realm, it feels as though we're being thrown from that recognition. The more we practice, in my experience, the more solidly we can stand in that recognition because it's been practiced. So any reminders that assist you in returning to your practice is really what I think is just most called for here and will be most supportive. Awareness is undisturbed by busyness, the activity of the mind, strong emotions. And in my experience, it's a conscious practice to return to that recognition of ourselves as that which is undisturbable. And the more we do it, the less easy it is to forget. Thank you, Julie. Okay, I've got two questions here that I'm going to lump together. I appreciate these. Sharon and Sabine both say, can you talk more about fear and how to deal with the fear of not being enough? Well, because at the end of this call, I'm going to be talking about this Bridge to Happiness course, which starts in a few days through Realize Media. It's actually a perfect time to begin to mention it. Because we experience fear when we're identified with the conditioned mind. And one of the things, I'm just going to confess, I'm deeply excited about this course that's about to start. I feel like this course, and I think this is part of what inspired me to turn more attention to teaching. This course feels like it was my opportunity to put in some form, to encapsulate my 8 years of monastic training and my practice beyond in a digestible form that isn't, it doesn't feel like a crash course to me because it's a month-long experience. So one of the things I talk a lot about in this course, Bridge to Happiness, is the way in which we experience fear when we're identified with the conditioned mind. So what we do at the beginning of the course is we begin to step by step unpack, recognize, name, and see clearly how our conditioned self-talk creates the context for this experience of fear. Fear is a conditioned response to the activity of the conditioned mind. So just as a direct example, if I love my little props here. So if anyone who's on the call that practices with me regularly knows that I seem to always need to have props nearby. So here we are in my little drama. This is the drama of Caverly's conditioned mind. So if I'm always listening to a voice that says, you're not enough, God, what is wrong with you? Is it not completely understandable that some young part of me is going to experience fear? Oh, got it. That's so true. I'm not enough. I'm not okay. I need to do more. And so, of course, this illusion, I'll come back to illusion in a moment, feels like I need to set out on a project. I need to fix myself. I need to improve myself. This is the whip behind the horse, constantly moving, whipping. So one of the things we do at the very beginning of the course is we look at how that relationship has formed, how it stays maintained, and even if you've been practicing for a very, very long time, how it subtly uses the language of practice to keep itself in place. So again, this voice might even come through the form of, you really should work on these anchor issues. They say that through a mindfulness practice, it's always got this like creepy voice, doesn't it? They say through a mindfulness practice, you could be less reactive, more responsive to life. So you really need to work at. But meanwhile, this young part of Caverly is feeling more and more diminished, more and more not okay. So working with fear means working with a practice that allows us to be clear about the nature of that structure. In my experience, it's not enough to just notice self-talk. We actually, through practice, are invited to become clear about the nature of that self-talk. I hope that addresses it, and I hope you'll join me for that month-long class. It starts in just a couple of days. Sabine and Sharon. Okay, Jen, how do we accept ourselves as being, oops, my computer screen just shifted. Ta-da. How do we accept ourselves as being all right as we are and not needing to be fixed when we're currently in pain and we want to change the behaviors and thoughts that are causing this pain? How do we accept ourselves as being all right as we are and not needing to be fixed when we're currently in pain and we want to change the behaviors and thoughts that are causing this pain? Let me just check that that was Jen. I want to call you by your name. Jen. Okay. Jen, I hope you'll hang with me for a moment here. I'm getting a smaller bowl. Oh. Okay. Here's little Jen. Okay. Here's the voice of, you're not enough. You're not okay. You need to do more. You need to be more. Imagine now another voice that comes in. I need more props, folks. Send me some props. Send me some good props. Okay, there's that voice. Here is a different voice that comes in to say, now I don't know the behaviors that lead to pain for you, Jen, so I'm just going to make up some, but I hope everyone on this call will apply their own. Oh, this really sucks. You know, you can get away from this. You could just go have a drink. Just go have one drink. You can get away from this. So can you feel how these two are in cahoots? They're two sides of one coin. Okay. Layering on top of all of that, this next layer. What is wrong with you? Why you're just wallowing in this? Why you need to do something about this. You know what? You need to change those behaviors. Don't go get a drink. I can't believe you're even listening to that voice. What is wrong with you? That's just another layer on top of what we've already seen. The reason I like this visual so much is because hopefully in this visual, you're taking a moment to pause and ask about this person, it's not an actual person, it's a bell, but no, really, it's not just a bell. It's a metaphor, okay? This person, we're calling it a person because it is a part of ourselves that got stuck in time believing they're not okay. And all of this drama has not helped them feel okay. It's not supported them, assisted them in any way. But hopefully through this interaction, you're pausing to check to see how this person must be feeling. That's important. That's the turn of compassion. That's a critical shift where our attention suddenly comes to meet someone who hasn't been seen clearly because of all this drama that's surrounding them. So when we practice acceptance, we're actually aligning the attention with the way in which awareness is always accepting all of it. Awareness isn't rejecting any aspect of this. As we practice accepting, we're accepting that these voices exist. We're accepting this part of us. So it's a different kind of acceptance. With this acceptance that I'm talking about now, we're embracing the part of us who has believed these stories for so long. And that turn is critical. That turn to actually being with the part of us in need is at the heart of this practice that we're focusing on today, around having intention. So now imagine intentions that support this person. So not resolutions that try to fix this person. We've already had enough of that. That's where all of the suffering is. Now imagine having intentions that really help out this young person. Because I love you, I'm going to support you the next time you hear that voice that says, oh, you should just have a drink. I'm going to support you. I'm going to remind you, we could actually sit down on the meditation cushion instead. We could go to a movement class. We could take a nice long walk. because I see you and I don't want you to suffer, and I love you. And most of all, I don't want you to be in pain. When you are in pain, I recognize that that pain sometimes just happens in life. And when it does, I'll be with you so it doesn't need to morph into suffering. There's a difference between pain and suffering. In the pain, I'll be with you. It's possible not to suffer. Jen, I hope that was useful. It's a little bit tricky to not get to engage with you after talking quite a bit, but perhaps you can let me know if that addressed your question. Okay, another question. I find it really easy to remember that place of being enough when I'm at ease. Oh, this is Julie's question. Julie, we've done this one. Okay. Okay, I think we've addressed Mary's question, Sabine and Sharon. Okay, Tara, question. You spoke about overweight and the mind. Can you explain better? Sure. All right. Oh, I just got your note, Julie, thank you. Overweight and the conditioned mind. Yeah, when I spoke about being overweight, I was referring to the way in which energy follows attention. So if my attention, I'm going to go back to my props. If my attention is on this conditioned voice that says, you're so fat, you're not worth anything, no one will ever love you. If my attention is on that, you can imagine that this is all taking place in the conditioned mind, by the way, okay? So this is all happening in the conditioned mind. If my attention is on believing that voice, feeding that voice with my attention, then actions are likely to follow. So here I am. You're so fat. I can't believe you. No one will ever love you. Oh, shit. I better go on a diet. I better fix myself. You know, I heard they're having a special at the gym. So can you feel the franticness of, I need to do something about this? Because the suffering comes the moment we indulge this voice, we take it as truth, we feed our attention to it. That's, by the way, this voice doesn't exist without feeding it attention. It's not real. It's not. My first teacher used to talk about, it doesn't have a body even. It's just a thought form. It's just the activity of the conditioned mind, which feels real when we're identified with it. So when we're not feeding our attention to this voice, our actions don't follow through. Our energy, when our attention's not here, our energy doesn't go here in the same way. So if my attention's there, my energy follows. Oh, now I need to go ... One of the things I'm really happy that we're doing in this course that's about to begin is that in module 2, we unpack how we learned to survive our lives. So underneath the stress of being identified with the conditioned mind, we each have come up with a different survival strategy, a different way to make our lives work. And on some level, these survival strategies have worked. I mean, that's why they're called survival strategies. So I, for example, am conditioned to just want to be able to get everything right. If I get everything right, then I'll have some sense of control. I'll be able to make sense of the chaos of the world, and I'll be lovable. I'll be able to be seen as someone who's reliable and trustworthy. And those, I'm conditioned to believe that those are all things that would make me lovable. Now, just to go with the theme of what we're talking about, can you hear the deep assumption that I'm not lovable just as I am? So we learn we learn to survive our lives in a particular way. And I have found through my own practice that it is extremely valuable to be clear about our own survival strategies so that when they arise, we can simply name them, recognize them for what they are, and not identify with them. In my experience, that the not identifying with them isn't at the point of full recognition of what it is. It doesn't actually take any kind of effort. It can sound like a doing. Well, now we have to do this work of disidentifying. That's not my experience. My experience is when we have practiced with this, we can see the survival strategy as it arises and recognize that's the survival strategy. It's like if you're walking down a dark alley and someone comes up to try to sell you something sketchy and they open a big coat. You know, you don't have to work really hard not to go off with that person. Everything in you, if you've brought attention to this, if this isn't your first time around and you don't naively just think, oh, well, this person has something nice to offer me. If you're paying attention, it's obvious. Why would I go down that road? If I give my attention to this man, energy will follow. I'm going to head down this dark road. And I've been there. It's really helpful in practice that as we pay attention, we can say, you know, I know where these thought forms lead. That's why to me, it's so valuable to be attentive to process. What are the processes that lead to suffering? What are the conditioned patterns that take me down that dark alley? How did I specifically learn to survive my life? And how might I recognize it the moment it comes up? Rather than thinking, oh yeah, that's true. I need to try to get everything under control. I need to do everything right. I need to beat myself up if I feel I've made a mistake. But by the way, guess who points out mistakes? You know, in truth, this notion of right and wrong is a complete creation. It's made up. It's a conditioned narrative. This voice feeds that conditioned narrative. It arises out of that conditioned narrative. It maintains and feeds that conditioned narrative. Thank you. I hope that was useful. I'm going to scroll through and see if there are any other questions. Sharon, I see that you said, I wish I could take this course, but I just had to buy a new car. Do know that scholarships are available. I believe it's the case. I hope it's the case that through this course, we're able to not turn folks away due to lack of funds. And it's really important to me that others who wish to have an experience of this material are able to access it. It's one of my favorite things about working with Worldwide Insight and Realize Media. Worldwide Insight is deeply dedicated to making practice available and accessible to all. You know, anyone can go to a library and find a computer. Now, I want to be clear. I do recognize that it takes privilege to be able to access a library. And so I should back up and say anyone is not an accurate statement. But I appreciate that this platform allows for much more accessibility than the old model that has become quite popular, at least in the United States, of the privileged go on retreats, the deeply privileged, meaning those who can afford really expensive retreats are the ones who get to practice in this way. And it's simply more and more becoming less so. And it's one of the things Presence Collective is so dedicated to, is making practice available and accessible. I just saw a question, who should I talk to? I'd really like to pursue payment alternatives. There are payment plans for the course, and there are payment alternatives. So I would think that you could email Giles directly. I'm going to see if he chimes in here. And if he doesn't, no worries. You could just email Realize Media to get more information about how to have a scholarship position or how to have a payment plan. I want to underline again that if you can afford the course, please pay for it in full so that other people have access as well. It's important. If everyone on this call offered the equivalent of 10 American dollars, the Realize Media would have, Worldwide Insight would have enough to fund every weekly call with ease. And so I really hope that you'll take an opportunity to support this platform. And if you can afford the Realize course, you might wish to say, I'd really like to support another person in accessing this material. And you might wish to pay more. And I would be deeply grateful if you take that consideration to heart. We all benefit from the collective practice that we're sharing through a course like this. And Giles just posted, yes, feel free to email me. So again, if you can pay even more than what the course costs, help us build that scholarship fund for this particular class. Your community is here with you on this call, and someone would be a grateful recipient. I want to transition to being even more direct about saying what this course is all about. I've probably never put a course together that I felt was such a capsule of my own experience of training. And I'd love to tell you a little bit about that training. So at the monastery, Giles just said, I'll follow up with an email to everyone on this call tomorrow. Thank you, Giles. I'd love to see whether there's some people on this call that could step forward and offer more, and whether there's some people who don't have enough, whether you could speak up and allow yourself to be supported by this loving and conscious community. So I spent 8 years in this Zen monastery, and I credit that monastic training to be the place that I very much received the tools needed to see process. It was an incredibly useful time in my practice in my life, because I was trained to recognize self-talk for what it is. I was trained to see patterns of conditioned thought form, and I've found that to be invaluable. In this first module, one of the things we're going to be exploring is the power of learning how to direct our attention so that we can place it where we want it to be. We've talked about that a little bit in this course. Lori, I just saw that I hope you'll offer this course again, that you can't do it this month. And so I'll talk to Realize Media about that. But right now I do know that this is, we don't have an intention in this moment to offer it again. So Lori will keep you posted, but I hope folks will do everything they can to make this one, and no worries, Lori, like I said, we'll keep you posted. But this course, it's difficult not to make it. And the reason why is because the course has modules that you can stream whenever you're ready to watch it. So it's pretty hard not to make the course work. There are live interactive calls each Sunday, but if you can't make those calls, then it's not a problem. Those calls, you can stream them and still receive great benefit, even though you wouldn't be able to call in and interact with me directly. And I want each of you to know that I'm dedicated to being completely available to the course over this month. So we're going to have a platform where you can write in your questions as well, and I will be available during this month-long course. So I think you'd have to be completely unable to access the internet for an entire month to not make the course, which, Lori, maybe you're not able to. And even then, you'd still have it all downloadable for your experience. It just wouldn't be live. So I just want to offer that. It's kind of like a book in that way. It's something that can sit on your shelf in that way. Richard, I really appreciate that you just said that you'll donate $10 to go to those who can't afford the course. Will others follow? Thank you for voicing that you're willing to support those who wish to be supported. Thank you very much. So this first module also will really support you in clarifying the role of the inner critic. And I don't know about others on this call, but Giles said I'd been practicing 20 years, and I thought, I wonder if he has an old bio. I think I've been practicing a lot longer than 20 years at this point. And so anyway, I went to the monastery in 1999. But I had been practicing before that. Long story short, I've been doing this a long time, and I've been doing this fully. I've been doing this as my life's calling, and I'm still recognizing subtleties about the way in which the conditioned mind is structured, the way it works, the way the inner critic tries to weave in new language to go unrecognized. What I can say, though, so that might to some people sound kind of dismal, like, oh my God, she's been practicing all these years. And so I do think it's important. I used to wonder why teachers didn't more often talk about the success of long-term practice. I think that sometimes we fear that it'll sound egocentric, but it actually has nothing to do with the ego. So I don't think it's egocentric at all to say that through these practices, there has been tremendous shift in my life, and that's why I continue, and that's why my life is devoted to sharing practice with others, teens, adults, anyone who wishes to access the teachings. I don't get confused anymore about what that voice is when it arises. Does that mean I never give it any attention at all? No, of course not. But I know the nature of it. I don't wonder if it's real or true or what it is. And that's a critical part in my own experience of ending suffering. So in this first module, there's a lot. I should name this it's a dense course. It has a lot of material. I didn't, as much as I love to ad lib, as much as I love to just speak from the moment, I wanted this course to have a real arc. So I took the time to condense, with Barnaby's help. I don't know if Barnaby's on this call, but Barnaby's kind of my right-hand man. Drea is my left-hand woman these days. So I thank both of them for supporting me. Andrea, thanks for your note on the sideboard too. And Brian, thank you for following Richard's lead and donating $10 to support others. So I really packed this course full. I wanted it to be an experience in which anyone taking the course would leave with a full tool belt. Again, as much as like guided meditations that are spacious and invite us into a particular experience are lovely, this step of being able to see, process, and know how to work with the conditioned mind has been deeply critical in my own practice. And I very much want to support other people in having a tool belt that can be of service in moments of suffering. So it's one thing to join a course and just be led through guided meditations that are spacious and beautiful and leave us feeling open and expansive. It's another to have a packed tool belt such that as we're moving through our lives, we recognize when a specific tool is called for. So just as an example, in module 2, we talk about how our conditioning formed and how we learned to survive our lives. In that very moment that I get triggered into a survival strategy of trying to do something right, for example, listening to that voice of self-hatred, in that very moment, I can pause and I can direct my attention to supporting the part of me who's been the recipient of that negative self-talk. That's just an example. I can offer reassurances to that part of me. That's just an example of it's a form, it's a creation that addresses the suffering that arises in that moment. So I really highly encourage you to consider that while a meditative practice that allows us to know how to be quiet and still is deeply useful, having tools that support us in recognizing process is, just in my experience, invaluable. So thank you. I would thank you, Emily. I see that you need to sign off, and I'm grateful to you too. Thank you for participating. I'm just going to check to see if there are any other questions about the course. We have some more time to talk about the course. Okay. Okay. Giles says, Sharon, give me an email so that I can, support you with a plan. Yeah, I just want to underline that we want as many people to be able to participate as possible. I don't know if I've ever, I don't know. There are many people on this call that practice with me often and regularly. You guys will have to tell me whether I always say like, this is the best thing that I've ever created. But like, for example, I just left this winter retreat and I left the retreat saying like, this is the best retreat we've ever offered. And my husband said, I think you say that after every retreat. So anyway, maybe now that I think about it, the New Year's course that I did through Realize Media, I felt like it was like the best course that we'd ever pulled together. But all that's to say, I really am excited about this course. It's full of tools. We move from seeing how we survived our lives in Module 2. And by the way, in Module 2, we look a lot at the Enneagram. So if you've never had experience with the Enneagram, I'm thrilled that that'll be a new tool to you at the end of this course. So for example, I made reference to my Enneagram type. You'll get, if you wish to, in the course, you'll get more seeped in an understanding of your own type. And so we'll explore the relationship between survival strategies, unmet needs, and the inner critic, which I pointed to in this call. And then we'll see how awareness practice can assist us in recognizing those unmet needs and respond rather than react to those survival strategies. That's the module that really can help us embody practice while leaving no stone unturned. So again, there's that way in which I've been privy to many experiences of various non-dual teachings, and one of the things I've noticed that folks in those circles can sometimes struggle with is I know how to recognize this larger sphere. I know how to rest in the absolute, for example, and I'm still heading home at night and getting in the same fight I always get in with my wife. So there's a lack of recognition of process and how to align life with that recognition on the absolute realm. The module 3 is dedicated to accessing compassion. This is an incredibly important module because for many of us, if you're on this call, you may have spent a lot of time being aware even of process, but without a practice of compassion, without being able to consciously direct compassion to this young part of you who's in need, the shifts of practice, the transformation of practice, sometimes only occurs on an intellectual level. Real transformation is infused with love. Real transformation cannot happen without compassion. And we're a world right now that's deeply thirsty for compassion, I think. I think we're deeply thirsty for love. So the tools aren't just intellectual tools in this call. They're ways of accessing the love and compassion that is the true medicine of our time. And to say it fairly, I think the true medicine of our time is the combination of understanding and love. And it is more often my experience that the compassion is where there's the most, the compassion is the most attenuated in a person's conditioned system. That understanding can sometimes come more easily. So in this accessing compassion part of the call, I offer a guided imagery that I've actually offered on many of my retreats and have gotten terrific feedback about. There's a preciousness and a tenderness to this, to the way this course unfolds. It starts, like I said, I crafted a very specific arc, and it starts with a lot of packing the tool belt, understanding, processing, seeing, naming, letting go, and it moves into, now how do we hold all of this with love? How do we meet the unmet needs that we've brought attention to? And I'm suggesting in this course that they can only be met through unconditional love. Unconditional love resides in the heart. Unconditional love resides in the realm of the absolute and infuses our experience. There's a way in which understanding can be limited to the mind. Without a practice, understanding can be limited to the mind. And that's not the kind of understanding we're talking about or experiencing, hopefully, in this course. So in this part of the course, we get in touch with what it means to be able to practice reassurances and focus on resting in our inherent well-being, grounding in our inherent well-being. You'll have supports to weave practice into your life from this module 3. And then in this 4th module, we're focusing on knowing ourselves as awareness. So in the 4th module, we take these tools and we look at it will be easy. If you've never done a course like this, it will be easy for these tools to get sucked into and co-opted into that same system we've been talking about. Well, now you know how to disidentify from the conditioned mind. Why aren't you disidentifying from the conditioned mind? What is wrong with you? So it's understandable and possible. Suzanne, thanks for saying peace from Sweden. I hope that you can join us on our course. So as that happens, it's not a problem, but thank goodness that there is a way that we can recognize that when it's happening and give our attention to using the tools, employing the tools from the larger recognition of who we are. So again, it's not what, it's how. So if we're using these tools from the perspective that there's something wrong with me, now I need to use I've got all these new tools. Now I need to use these tools to make me a better person. They'll have a very different experience, and we'll be watching for that in the course. So no need for fear at all. But you'll have a very different experience than if the tools are supports that serve as reminders to return to our experience of authenticity. So this whole course is based in the premise that there's nothing wrong with you. This whole course, every aspect of this course is seeped in the notion that you don't actually have to fix or improve yourself, because there is no self to fix or improve. And that doesn't mean there's some like void, some dark void where you used to see yourself to be. It means a realigning of the attention. And in that realigning, we're remembering, we're recognizing ourselves to be that which cannot be broken, that which is fundamentally whole, that which has room for the inner critic without being confused that the inner critic is real, that what the inner critic is asserting is true. So this last module is the module designed to embody and reflect the understanding that our true nature is wholeness, awareness, and love. Through reflection and exploration and inquiry, we'll ground our journey in this fundamental and revolutionary understanding. And then you'll be given tools that support in integrating this Bridge to Happiness course with the rest of your life. And I'm very happy that, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I will be available after the course through private consultation, through Skype, and through retreats that I offer throughout the country and hopefully world. I know there's one person on the call who's encouraging me to head beyond the United States. So I hope to. And as I said in this call, my intention is to redirect my attention in 2018. I'm practicing what I preach. I'm turning my attention to the place that my heart is most enlivened. And I do it in the hope to benefit all. So I very, very much hope you can join me for this month-long course where we can take the journey together. And if you have any questions at all about the course, please feel free. You could email Drea, my assistant, at drea@caverlymorgan.org. You could email Giles if it's a technical question about the course or payment plans for the course. Sharon, just reading your words here. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that you're going to join the course, and I'm very happy you're going to sign up for our summer retreat. I would, even if you are not in the United States, please do head to the caverlymorgan.org website. There, that's where the retreats that I'll be offering will be listed. And if you'd be open to signing up for our mailing list, we would love to have you. We won't just be sending out mailings that have to do with offerings in Portland, Oregon, although they might be embedded in some of the mailings. Often I'm just putting out writings, blog posts through that email list. So I would love to have you join our community in that virtual way if you can. And again, I'm just tickled pink about Presence Collective. One House of Peace is the nonprofit that I formed when I left the monastery where I trained. And it's morphing beautifully into something quite different than it was when it began. It's evolving, and One House of Peace hasn't died. It's evolved, and so I'm excited to just share the message of that with you. Again, on the Caverly Morgan website, there's a Presence Collective tab that speaks about it. And Drea just offered her email address. Drea@peaceinschools.org is one way that you can reach Drea. Soon Drea will have a Presence Collective email address, I trust. But Presence Collective is brand new. It's hot off the press. So right now, you can access her through that Peace in Schools email address. Again, Peace in Schools is the work we do with teens and educators here in the United States. So we're the first nonprofit that's offered a semester-long mindfulness course to teens in the country. And we're now in 7 schools in Portland, Oregon, and offering mindfulness training to adult educators as well. So if that interests you, feel free to check out the Peace in Schools website as well. Thank you so much for your message, Claude. Thank you for your projection regarding love. I want to say again that even if you decide now is not the right time for you to join us for a month-long immersion in these tools, I hope you'll take a moment to pause and appreciate that which drew you to this call, that just drew you to practice. I've been deeply present to the chaos of the conditioned world these days. And I imagine, even if you're not in the United States, you have something that you're relating to regarding some aspect of the conditioned world that is close to home and filled with suffering. And that chaos, in my experience, is a perfect mirror of how our conditioned process works. So we have this internal suffering, this internal chaos, and we project it outward, and we create suffering outward as well. There's actually no distinction between the in and the out, though it can sometimes feel like there is. And for that reason, I feel so strongly that this is an incredibly important time to be practicing. One of the reasons I'm excited about this month-long course is because it's becoming a robust group of folks who will join. And as it becomes that robust group of folks, we become a light as a community to ourselves, but also for the world. So thank you for your light, the light that you bring to your own practice, to your own being. And thank you for the way you join it with the light of this community, which is quite bright and quite strong, and I believe is a real contribution to the suffering of the world. So thank you for your contribution. I'll just end again by saying, please sign up for caverlymorgan.org mailings if you wish to. You can unsubscribe easily anytime. Check out the Presence Collective tab. And most of all, please sign up for this course if you can. Give yourself that gift in this new year. It is my greatest intention, and I trust that it will support your practice. And I'm honored and humbled to be in the position to support you. So thank you. Thank you for the ways that supports me too. And thank you for supporting Realize Media and Worldwide Insight with your contribution.